The sky over the small town was quiet until a strange light broke the calm evening. People first thought it was a falling star, but the light did not vanish. It grew brighter, steady, and powerful. Dogs barked, children pointed, and neighbors gathered in the streets. The light moved slowly across the sky and then stopped above the open fields. From far away, it looked like a silver star, but as it came closer, the shape of a ship could be seen. It was smooth, shining, and nothing like the airplanes people knew. The air around it seemed to hum. The people stood frozen. Some shouted in fear, others whispered in awe. Phones recorded every second as the silver ship lowered itself onto the ground without making a sound. Soldiers and officials had already been warned. Strange readings in the sky had been noticed days before, and now their suspicions were true. Armored vehicles surrounded the landing area. Scientists, leaders, and reporters rushed to the field. The ship's surface reflected the lights of trucks and cameras. Everyone waited to see what would happen. A door slid open on the side of the ship. From the bright opening, a figure appeared. She was tall, graceful, and unlike any human. Her eyes glowed faintly, her hair shimmered like strands of silver, and her clothing looked like woven light. The crowd gasped. Some fell silent, others whispered in disbelief. She stepped onto the grass with calm dignity. Her steps were slow, almost like a queen walking in her own palace. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the officials shouted for them to hold. The scientists moved closer, eager to see, but the alien woman ignored them all. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for someone. Then, in a voice that was clear and filled with emotion, she spoke words that shocked the entire field. "Why did you leave me, human?" The soldiers looked at each other, confused. The scientists whispered in surprise. Reporters shouted questions. None of them understood. Why would an alien princess speak as if she knew someone here? Why did she say human with such feeling, as if it was not just a word but a memory? In a small house at the edge of town, a man named Aaron sat in front of his television. Like everyone else, he had been watching the live broadcast of the strange event. But when the alien princess spoke those words, he felt his chest tighten. His hands trembled. His mind went back to a memory he had long tried to bury. Years ago, when Aaron was still a teenager, he had seen strange lights in the forest near his home. Curious, he went to see and found something unbelievable. A small craft had crashed, and inside was a young alien girl. She was injured and frightened. At first, he thought it was a dream, but when she opened her strange glowing eyes, he knew it was real. For days, he cared for her in secret. He brought her food, water, and warmth. They could barely speak, but somehow they understood each other. She learned his name, and he learned hers. She called herself Era. She laughed when she learned simple words, and her smile was bright even in the darkest night. Before she left, she had touched his hand and whispered that she would return. Aaron grew up thinking it had been nothing more than a strange dream of his youth. The ship that came for her erased all signs of her presence. He told no one. Life moved on. Years passed. Yet somewhere in the back of his heart, the memory stayed, a quiet light he never spoke of. Now, as he watched the screen, he knew the truth. The alien princess who had stepped out of the silver ship was not a stranger. She was Era, the girl he once saved. She had grown into someone powerful and royal, but her eyes were the same. She had come across the stars, and the first words she spoke were for him. Back in the field, confusion spread among the crowd. Officials tried to speak to her, asking her purpose, asking her name, but she ignored them. She repeated her question, this time louder, her voice trembling with both anger and sorrow. Why did you leave me, human? The soldiers looked uneasy. Scientists took notes, trying to explain the strange scene. Reporters shouted into their microphones, declaring that an alien had demanded answers from someone on Earth. People around the world watched in shock, not knowing what it meant. But Aaron knew. He was the reason she had come. And deep inside, he feared the truth, she believed he had left her. Aaron turned off the television and stood still in silence. His heart pounded. The promise from long ago echoed in his mind. She had returned, just as she said she would. And now, she had found him again. The night air outside his house was filled with voices and excitement, but Aaron barely heard them. He knew his quiet life was about to end. The alien princess had arrived on Earth, and she had called for him. The news of the silver ship spread across the world. Every channel showed the tall alien princess standing in the field, her voice carrying through every speaker and screen. People debated what her words meant. Some thought it was a trick, others said it was a hidden message. But one thing was clear, she had spoken with emotion, as if she truly knew someone among the humans. In the small town, Aaron sat quietly in his kitchen. His television still glowed, but he no longer watched. His mind drifted back to the memory he could never forget. Years ago, before life grew heavy with responsibility, before work and routine, he had lived a simpler life. That was when he found her. He remembered the night clearly. The forest near his home had always been a place of peace for him. That evening, a strange light drew him deeper into the trees. What he discovered changed his life. A small craft had broken through the branches and landed hard on the ground. Smoke rose from the metal. At first, he thought he should run, but something pulled him forward. Inside, he found her. She was young, fragile, and unlike anything he had seen before. Her skin had a faint glow, her eyes shone even in the dark, and her clothing looked as if it were made from stars. She was hurt, and she looked at him with fear. Aaron, though afraid, reached out his hand. To his surprise, she did not push him away. For several days, Aaron cared for her. He brought food and water, though she ate little. He made a fire to keep her warm, and she would sit close, studying his face as if every human expression was a mystery. Slowly, they began to understand each other. She could not speak his language well, but she learned words quickly. He taught her to say his name, and she smiled each time she spoke it. She called herself Era. That name stayed with him forever. Her voice when she said it was soft, like a promise. Aaron often wondered later if it had been only a dream, but the way she had touched his hand told him it was real. One night, as they sat by the fire, Era pointed at the sky. She spoke in her broken human words. "I will come back," she said. He laughed then, thinking it was impossible, but she repeated it firmly. "I will come back." Her eyes shone with certainty. Not long after, a larger ship arrived. Aaron hid behind the trees as figures in glowing armor came to take her. Era turned back once, her eyes finding him in the shadows. She placed her hand over her heart, then she was gone. The forest grew silent again, as if nothing had happened. Aaron tried to tell himself it was only a strange dream of youth, something his mind had created. Years passed, and life moved on. Yet deep inside, he knew it had been real. He never told anyone. The world would not believe him. Now, as he sat in his kitchen, he understood the truth. Era had not forgotten. She had become a princess, a leader of her people, but she still remembered him. She had crossed the stars and returned to Earth, looking for the boy who once saved her. She had expected him to be waiting. Instead, she found nothing. To her, it must have felt like he had abandoned her. The world outside his window was alive with noise. People gathered in the streets, talking about the alien princess. Cars rushed past, carrying officials and reporters. But Aaron stayed where he was. He felt heavy with guilt. He had done nothing wrong, yet her words made him feel as if he had failed her. In the field, Era stood tall before the soldiers and scientists. They asked her questions in many languages, but she answered none of them. Her eyes searched the crowd again and again. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. She repeated her question, demanding to know why she had been left alone. The scientists argued among themselves. Some believed she spoke of ancient contact between humans and her people. Others thought it was a message meant to test humanity's response. Leaders worried about what her presence meant for the safety of Earth. Yet Era's face showed only one thing: she was searching for someone personal, someone important to her. At last, her patience faded. She declared in a clear voice that she had once known a human who promised never to leave her. She said she came across the stars to find him, but now she could not. The crowd erupted in confusion. Soldiers tightened their grip on weapons, scientists begged her to explain further, and reporters sent urgent updates around the world. Far away, Aaron whispered her name. His voice cracked, and his heart ached. The promise she remembered was the same one she had spoken long ago. She had not forgotten a single word. And now, she wanted answers. Aaron looked at his reflection in the window. He was no longer the boy from the forest. His hair was darker, his face carried lines of age, and his hands were rough from work. How could he face her now? Would she even recognize him? Would she still see the boy who once gave her hope? The night deepened, but Aaron knew sleep would not come. The world was changing. The princess had returned, and she was calling for him. He had a choice to make: remain hidden in silence, or step into the light and answer the question that had traveled across the stars. The field outside the small town was no longer a quiet place. It had turned into a stage for the whole world. Bright lights from cameras covered the grass, military vehicles formed a tight circle, and curious citizens stood behind barriers, waiting to see history unfold. In the center of it all stood the silver ship, and in front of it stood Era, the alien princess whose presence had changed everything. Her tall frame glowed under the lights, and her eyes never stopped searching the crowd. Officials from different countries tried to speak to her through translators, but she ignored them. Her gaze swept across the faces before her, as if searching for a single person hidden among thousands. She repeated her words again, her voice calm yet filled with demand. "Why did you leave me, human?" The crowd shifted uneasily. Many thought it was only a phrase or some kind of message. But the way she spoke, it made her sound personal, almost wounded. The soldiers felt their grips tighten on their weapons, though no one dared fire. The scientists whispered to each other, debating what her words meant. And somewhere in the crowd, standing behind the rows of soldiers, was Aaron. He had been brought there quietly by local officials after his strange behavior caught attention. He did not know how they had found out about his past, but perhaps the look on his face when she spoke had betrayed him. They placed him in the crowd, unsure of his importance, but Aaron knew why he was there. His heart beat heavily in his chest as he watched her. Era's eyes stopped moving. She froze, staring straight at him. For a long moment, no sound came from her lips. Then, slowly, she began to walk forward. Each step was measured, her silver gown flowing like water, her expression sharp yet uncertain. The soldiers raised their weapons, but she paid them no attention. She stopped in front of Aaron. The crowd went silent, and even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. She looked into his face, studying every line, every detail. Though many years had passed, recognition filled her glowing eyes. "It is you," she whispered. Aaron could barely breathe. "Era," he said softly, his voice breaking. The crowd erupted with noise. Reporters shouted questions, leaders demanded answers, and soldiers moved closer in fear of what was happening. But Era ignored them all. Her eyes stayed on Aaron, and her voice grew louder so all could hear. "Why did you leave me, human? You promised me you would not. I searched for you across the stars. I came back, and you were gone." Her words carried both anger and sorrow. Aaron felt the weight of her accusation. He wanted to explain, but the world was listening. He struggled for words, his throat dry. Finally, he said, "I never left you. I am only human. I had no way to find you. You were taken from me." The soldiers looked at one another, confused by his reply. The scientists scribbled notes, excited by the mention of past contact. The leaders whispered about what this meant for humanity. But Era's eyes softened slightly, though her voice still carried hurt. "You did not search. You forgot me." Aaron shook his head quickly. "I never forgot you. Every day I wondered if you were real. Every night I remembered your words. But I am just a man, Era. I could not reach the stars." The crowd felt the weight of his words. For the first time, they understood that this was not a simple meeting between alien and human. This was personal. The princess had not come to conquer or to trade. She had come searching for a bond she thought had been broken. The leaders tried to step forward, but Era raised her hand, and the air itself shimmered with energy. The soldiers froze, unable to move. She looked at Aaron again, her voice quieter now. "Do you still carry our promise?" Aaron hesitated. The world was watching, and yet all he could see was her. His mind went back to the forest, the nights by the fire, her laughter as she learned his name, her promise that she would return. Slowly, he placed his hand over his heart, just as she once did before leaving. "I still carry it," he said. Her expression changed. The anger faded, replaced by relief and something deeper, though her eyes still carried sadness. "Then you are still mine," she whispered. The scientists gasped at her words. The reporters repeated them loudly into their microphones. The soldiers looked uneasy. The leaders argued in hushed tones about what it meant. Was this an alliance, a threat, or something else entirely? Aaron felt the tension growing, but his focus stayed on her. "Why are you here, Era?" he asked. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the gathered humans. Her voice rose, filled with power and command. "I came because my people are in danger. My empire is breaking, and enemies rise to destroy us. I came seeking hope, and I remembered the human who once gave me strength when I was weak. I came to find him. And I have found him." The crowd gasped again. Leaders whispered about what this meant for Earth. Could humanity be dragged into a conflict beyond the stars? Could one man truly hold such importance? Era turned back to Aaron, her voice soft once more. But first, you must answer. Will you stand with me now, or will you let me face the stars alone? The question hung heavy in the air. Aaron felt the eyes of the world on him, waiting for his reply. His heart pounded. He knew that whatever he said would not only change his life but could also change the future of humanity itself. The crowd in the open field was restless. Leaders argued among themselves, soldiers stood ready with weapons in their hands, and reporters shouted questions into their microphones. But the focus of the world was on Era, the alien princess, and Aaron, the human she had come to find. Her tall figure stood beside him, glowing softly under the lights. She had declared that her empire was falling and that she had come to Earth for hope. Many people thought it was a trick, some thought it was an opportunity, and others whispered in fear of what this meant. Aaron felt the weight of her words. He had lived a quiet life until now, but suddenly he was being pulled into something larger than anything he had ever known. He turned to Era and asked in a steady voice, "What do you mean your empire is breaking?" The field went quiet as she began to speak. Her voice was calm but filled with sadness. My people live far across the stars, spread across many worlds. For centuries, we were united under one banner, one family. But now, pride and hunger for power have broken us apart. Factions rise against one another, and war spreads. Our enemies grow stronger, and my throne is not safe. She paused, her eyes scanning the faces around her. I am a princess, but I am not enough to hold my empire together. I searched for strength beyond my people, and I remembered the human boy who once showed me kindness when I had nothing. I remembered you, Aaron. Her words stirred the crowd. The scientists whispered about her empire, wondering how advanced her civilization must be. The leaders argued in hushed voices about whether Earth should involve itself in a distant war. But to Era, none of their arguments mattered. Her gaze stayed on Aaron. Aaron struggled to take in what she said. He had spent his whole life believing that humanity was small compared to the vastness of the universe. Now this alien princess was saying that his small act of kindness long ago had given her hope. He shook his head. I do not understand. I am no leader. I am no soldier. I am just a man from a small town. Era stepped closer. Her voice lowered, meant only for him though the crowd still listened. That is why you matter. My people are powerful, but they have forgotten what true strength is. They believe strength comes from ships, from weapons, from fear. But you showed me another strength. You gave me compassion when I was alone. You taught me that even the weak can protect. That is why I need you. Her words touched him deeply. Aaron remembered the nights in the forest, when she had been lost and afraid, and how he had comforted her even though he himself was afraid. He had thought it was nothing at the time, only human instinct. But to her, it had been everything. The leaders stepped forward, demanding answers. One spoke loudly. Princess, if your people are at war, why come to us? Earth has no ships, no armies for the stars. We cannot fight for you. Era turned her gaze toward them, her voice strong and clear. You misunderstand. I did not come to take your armies. I came to understand if humanity is truly what I believe it to be. If Aaron is proof of your spirit, then perhaps your world has something my people have lost. If I am right, then humanity may help not with weapons, but with wisdom. Her words caused more debate among the officials. Some saw hope for an alliance. Others saw danger. The soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure if this alien was a threat or a savior. The scientists, however, were fascinated. They wanted to know more about her people, her empire, and the enemies she spoke of. Meanwhile, Aaron felt the pressure growing. He had never asked for any of this. Yet the princess had placed her hope on him. He looked into her eyes and saw no lies, only truth and desperation. She had traveled across the stars not for power, not for conquest, but because she believed in him. Finally, he spoke again. Era, even if I wished to help, I do not know how. I am only one man. What can I do against your enemies? She looked at him with steady eyes. You can stand beside me. You can remind me, and remind my people, of what we have forgotten. You can show them what it means to fight not for power, but for each other. The words sent a chill through him. He knew her request was not simple. It meant leaving behind his old life. It meant stepping into a war he did not understand. But when he thought of the promise she made long ago, and the trust in her eyes now, he realized he could not walk away. The crowd waited for his answer, but Aaron stayed silent. His heart was torn between fear and duty. Era did not press him. Instead, she turned to the humans watching. I do not come to rule you. I do not come to destroy you. I come because your kind may hold the key to saving more than my world. But I must know. Are you willing to stand with me? The silence that followed was heavy. The world had heard her words. For the first time in history, humanity was being asked not as subjects or enemies, but as partners. Aaron closed his eyes for a moment. He knew his choice was coming soon. The night after Era's words, the whole world could not rest. Every channel, every radio, and every screen showed the image of the alien princess standing beside Aaron. Some called her a savior, others a danger. Governments argued about what should be done, but no matter how much they debated, one truth remained: Era had come not for them, but for a single man, and now the eyes of humanity were on him. Aaron sat in a guarded room, away from the noise of reporters and officials. Soldiers stood outside his door, but inside, silence filled the space. He kept replaying her words in his mind. She did not ask for armies or weapons. She asked for something harder, something that could not be measured: humanity's spirit. When Era entered the room, the silence broke. Her tall frame seemed out of place in the small space, yet her presence filled it completely. Aaron stood to greet her, though his heart was heavy. You asked for me to stand with you, he said quietly. But what do you really want from me? I have no strength. I am no leader. Era's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. You are wrong, Aaron. You have the strength my people lack. That is why I came. But if you need proof, then I will give you a test. Not just you, but your world. He frowned. A test. She nodded. There is a faction in my empire that has broken away. They are ruthless, filled with pride, and they believe only in conquest. Already, they push against my borders. If they are not stopped, they will spread beyond my people. They may one day come for your earth. I will take you and a small group of your kind. You will face them with me. Not with numbers, not with power, but with what you call human spirit. Aaron felt his throat tighten. The idea of leaving Earth, of facing enemies across the stars, filled him with fear. Yet at the same time, he remembered the look in her eyes, the memory of a girl in the forest who once trusted him. He could not turn away. I will go, he said at last. The next morning, preparations began. Leaders argued against sending him, but Hera's authority silenced them. She declared that this was not a mission for soldiers or politicians, but for ordinary humans who carried the courage of their race. Aaron chose a small group himself. There was Lena, a young nurse from the town, whose kindness reminded him of the care Aaron once praised. There was Tomasz, a farmer with strong hands and steady patience, who said he wished to see the stars before he died. There was Myra, a teacher who believed children must know that humanity could stand tall even in the face of the unknown. And there was Yusuf, a mechanic who loved machines and dreamed of touching ships that flew beyond the sky. Together, they were not warriors. They were ordinary people. But when Aero looked at them, she smiled. This is what I wished to see. Not soldiers forced to obey, but humans who choose to stand. Her silver ship opened once more, and the group stepped inside. For Aaron, it felt like crossing into a dream. The walls shimmered with soft light, the air carried a faint hum, and the stars awaited beyond. As the ship rose into the sky, Earth grew smaller beneath them. The ordinary lives they once knew were left behind. Days passed in the vast silence of space. Aira showed them her world through holograms, teaching them about her people and the danger they faced. The group listened with awe, but also with doubt. How could they, with no weapons or training, hope to face such enemies? Aira reminded them again and again. You are not here to fight as my soldiers. You are here to remind my people that strength is not only in power. It is in unity, in kindness, in the will to protect even when afraid. At last, the test came. A smaller vessel of the hostile faction appeared in the darkness of space. Its sharp edges glowed with red light, its movements fast and threatening. Aira's crew prepared for defense, but she turned to Aaron and his group. This is your chance. Show me what it means to be human. The enemy ship hailed them with threats. They demanded surrender, mocking Aira's weakened empire. Aaron looked at Lena, Tomasz, Myra, and Yusuf. None of them carried weapons, but each had something else. Lena suggested they speak, not with fear, but with honesty. Tomasz reminded them that even enemies could be slowed with clever tactics, not just strength. Myra suggested they show no hatred, even in the face of hostility. Yusuf studied the enemy ship with hungry eyes, searching for flaws in its design. Working together, they surprised the enemy. Yusuf noticed that the enemy vessel relied too much on power shields but ignored its oxygen systems. Tomasz suggested creating a distraction by releasing harmless signals, making the enemy think they were launching an attack. While the enemy prepared for a strike that never came, Lena and Myra spoke boldly over the communication channel, declaring that humanity stood not for conquest but for unity, and that they would never surrender to fear. The enemy, confused by such defiance from simple humans, hesitated. Aira seized the moment, ordering her crew to disable the ship without destroying it. In moments, the enemy vessel floated powerless in the dark. The humans had done what trained soldiers could not. They had turned weakness into strength through creativity, unity, and courage. When it was over, Airo looked at them with pride. Now I see. This is what I needed. This is what my people must learn again. For the first time since leaving Earth, Aaron felt hope. Humanity had passed its first test among the stars. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Greater battles lay ahead, and their spirit would be tested more than ever. The victory over the enemy vessel gave hope to Aira and her loyal crew, but it was only a small step in a much larger battle. As the disabled ship drifted in silence, Aaron and his companions looked out the windows of the silver vessel. For the first time, they truly saw how vast the stars were, and how small they felt within them. Era's crew cheered for the humans. They spoke in their own language, voices filled with admiration, but their eyes made it clear they were impressed. Eren felt no pride, only responsibility. He knew that this small victory meant the fight ahead would be far greater. Era placed her hand on Eren's shoulder. What you and your people did today was more than clever. It was human. You turned weakness into strength. This is the lesson my people need to see with their own eyes. Soon, her ship carried them deeper into her territory. As they traveled, the group from Earth saw planets shining like jewels, stations hanging in the dark like cities of light, and fleets of ships that moved like silver arrows across the black sea of space. Yet they also saw scars of war. Burned colonies floated in silence, and broken ships drifted as reminders of battles lost. Eren's heart grew heavier with each sight. Era's words about her empire's fall were no longer just stories. They were real, and he stood in the middle of them. When they reached Era's capital world, the humans were overwhelmed. The city stretched across mountains and oceans, towers of crystal and light rising high into the sky. Ships flew between them like birds in endless motion. It was beauty mixed with sorrow, for the people they saw carried worry on their faces. Era led Eren and his companions into the royal hall. Her advisors and generals gathered quickly, speaking in sharp tones. Some bowed to her with respect, but others glared at the humans. They demanded to know why she had brought such weak creatures to a war that required strength. Eren stood quietly, feeling the weight of their eyes. He could sense their doubt, their anger, their fear. He understood then that their true battle was not only against the outside enemy but also against the pride within their own hearts. That night, the alarm came. A great fleet from the hostile faction had crossed into Era's territory. Their ships moved swiftly, ready to strike at the capital itself. Panic spread through the city. Soldiers rushed to their stations, and civilians filled the streets with fear. Era stood tall in the command hall. "We will not run. We will stand," she declared. Her generals argued, saying the enemy fleet outnumbered them, but she silenced them with a single look. She turned to Eren and his group. "This is the true test. Today, humanity will stand with us." Eren's hands trembled, but he nodded. Lena, Tamash, Myra, and Yusuf stood beside him without hesitation. They were not soldiers, yet none of them stepped back. The battle began in the darkness above the capital. Enemy ships poured in like a storm, their red lights flashing. Era's fleet rose to meet them, silver against crimson. The sky turned into fire as energy beams crossed, explosions shook the heavens, and broken ships fell like stars. Inside the command hall, Eren and his companions worked beside Era's officers. Yusuf pointed out weaknesses in the enemy formation. Tamash suggested using the terrain of the nearby moons to create ambush points. Lena calmed frightened civilians who crowded into shelters, reminding them that survival was strength. Myra spoke through the communication channels, encouraging not only soldiers but also the ordinary people, telling them to hold on with courage. Their words and actions spread through the fleet. Soldiers who once doubted the humans began to listen. Era herself fought with fire in her eyes, guiding her ships with skill, but it was the human ideas that turned the tide. Eren saw a chance. The enemy commander's ship was powerful but moved with arrogance, staying at the front to display its strength. Eren remembered a simple trick from his small town days, when hunters would lure animals by showing weakness. He suggested a plan. Era listened and agreed. One of her ships pretended to retreat, drawing the enemy commander forward. In his pride, he followed, certain of victory. but waiting beyond the shadow of the moon were Aera's hidden ships. At Aaron's signal, they struck. The commander's vessel was caught off guard, its shields broken in moments. The sight of their leader's ship burning shook the enemy fleet. Their formation collapsed, and Aera's forces pressed forward with renewed strength. One by one, the hostile ships fell back. The sky cleared, and the capital was safe. Cheers filled the city. People poured into the streets, celebrating the victory. Soldiers who once doubted the humans now saluted them with respect. Aera stood before her people, declaring that humanity had proven itself. These humans, small in number, showed us what true courage is. Today we fought not just with weapons, but with heart. And we stand because of it. Aaron stood beside her, still shaking from the fear of battle but also filled with pride. He looked at Lena, Tamash, Myra, and Yusuf. They were tired, but their eyes shone with the knowledge that they had done something greater than themselves. As the night sky above the capital glowed with victory lights, Aaron knew the war was far from over. The enemy would return, stronger and angrier. But he also knew something else: humanity had taken its first step into the stars, and their spirit had changed the fate of a world far beyond their own. The capital city glowed with the light of celebration, but Aaron felt a quiet weight in his heart. Victory was real, yet he knew it was not the end. The enemy had been defeated this time, but they would not stop. They would return, stronger and more dangerous. He could already see that in the worried eyes of Aera's advisors who tried to hide their fear behind smiles. That evening, Aera invited Aaron and his companions to the royal balcony. From there, they could see the vast city alive with lights. Music carried through the air, and banners waved in the wind. People looked up at the palace with hope shining in their faces. For the first time in many years, they believed that survival was possible. Aera turned to Aaron. "When I asked you why you left me, I did not mean only myself. I meant my people. We have been alone for too long, watching our empire weaken. I feared you had abandoned us, as others have. But tonight you showed me that humans do not turn away from those who need them." Aaron lowered his eyes. "I never meant to leave anyone. I only thought Earth was small and powerless. I thought we had no place in a war among the stars. But now I see we were wrong. Humanity is small, yes, but not powerless." His words touched not only Aera but also Lena, Tamash, Myra, and Yusuf. They had all thought the same before this journey. They had believed Earth was too fragile to matter in the vast galaxy. Yet here they stood, on a royal balcony of a foreign world, honored as heroes. The next day, Aera called a council. Generals, advisors, and leaders of her empire gathered in the great hall. Aaron and his group stood by her side. Many still doubted, their voices sharp with fear. They warned that more battles would come, that the humans could not possibly stand against fleets and weapons beyond their own understanding. Aaron listened quietly, then spoke. His voice was steady, though his heart beat fast. "I know you fear. I fear too. But strength is not only in numbers or weapons. It is in spirit, in imagination, in standing when no one believes you can. Humanity survived storms, wars, hunger, and endless nights on Earth. We learned to rise from nothing. That is our gift. And we offer it to you." The hall fell silent. His words carried no arrogance, only truth. Even the doubtful generals lowered their gaze, for they knew courage when they heard it. From that moment, the humans were no longer seen as outsiders. They became part of the plan for the future. Aaron and his companions trained with Aera's soldiers, teaching them simple tricks of survival and strategy that humans had used on Earth for centuries. In return, they learned the advanced ways of space travel, energy, and starship combat. Together, they began to shape something new, a bond between two worlds. Weeks passed, and the people of the capital grew stronger. Where once there had been fear, now there was determination. Children played in the streets again. Workers repaired cities and built defenses. Soldiers trained harder, inspired by the humans who fought beside them. But one evening, a message came. Scouts reported that the enemy was gathering again, this time with a fleet so large it could swallow stars. The joy of victory turned to worry. Many whispered that this battle would end everything. Era refused to bow to despair. She stood before her people and declared, "We will not surrender. We will not run. If they come, we will rise. And we will rise not alone, but with our human brothers and sisters." Her words echoed across the empire. For the first time in generations, her people felt united. They were no longer an empire slowly falling apart. They were a people reborn. On the night before the battle, Aaron and Era stood together on the palace roof. The stars stretched endlessly above them. For a long moment, they said nothing, only watching the sky. Finally, Era spoke. "When I first saw you again, I asked why you left me. Now I see you never truly left. You came back when it mattered most." Aaron looked at her, his voice quiet but firm. "And I will not leave again. Humanity stands with you now. Whatever comes, we face it together." Era smiled, not as a princess, but as a friend. "Then tomorrow will not be the end. Tomorrow will be the beginning." As dawn rose over the capital, the great fleet of the enemy appeared in the distance, their red lights glowing like fire across the sky. The ground shook as alarms rang out. Soldiers took their positions. Civilians gathered in shelters. Ships lifted into the air, forming a shield of silver around the planet. Aaron stood with Lena, Tamash, Myra, and Yusuf inside the command hall. Their fear was real, but so was their courage. They looked at one another, and without speaking, they knew what they had become. They were no longer just visitors from Earth. They were defenders of this world, protectors of its people, and symbols of what humanity could be among the stars. The enemy fleet drew closer. The final battle was about to begin. Yet as the first shot of light tore across the heavens, Aaron felt no despair. He felt hope. For the first time, humanity was not standing in the shadows of greater powers. Humanity was standing at the front, with friends, with allies, with a future waiting to be written. And as the war among the stars began again, the promise of tomorrow burned brighter than any weapon. Humanity had found its place, and it was among the stars.